Welcome to the Deep Dive.
Mm.
We're here to unpack some really compelling source material for you.
Giving you that shortcut to being genuinely well-informed.
Exactly.
But-
And today,
Question.
it's this. What if the person you're about to set straight, with all that conviction, turns out to be the very one God uses to show you grace when you really desperately need it most?
Wow. Okay. That hits hard right away.
Right. So our mission today is to explore how theological convictions, the strong beliefs we hold, don't just coexist with genuine humility, but actually maybe they thrive because of it.
Which feels counterintuitive in today's world, doesn't it?
Totally. We live in this age of hot takes, quick corrections, online pile-ons. It feels like being right has somehow become more important than, well, being righteous. But let's be super clear. This isn't about ditching our beliefs or saying, anything goes.
No, not at all.
It's about a really crucial insight from our sources. That how we hold our convictions, it matters just as much as what they are.
So every conversation, even a disagreement, is actually a discipleship opportunity. Is that the idea?
That's exactly it.
And that really gets to the heart of the challenge for you, our listener, today. Are we truly ready to look in that uncomfortable mirror?
Yeah.
Are we willing to consider that maybe our manner, our tone, our whole approach, it might sometimes completely undermine the very message of truth and love we think we're defending?
I know I certainly had to pause when I read the opening scenario in our source material. It calls it When the Tables Turn.
Okay.
And it asks you to picture this. You've just intellectually demolished another Christian's theological view. Your arguments,
Yeah.
sharp, maybe your tone, even sharper.
Feeling pretty good about yourself.
Right. You walk away feeling like, yeah, defended the truth. Now, fast forward maybe 3 years, life throws some curveballs, unexpected hard stuff. And you find yourself homeless,
Oh, wow.
standing on a doorstep. And guess whose doorstep it is?
Let me guess. The person you demolished.
Exactly. The very person you won against.
Yeah.
And they take you in.
Oh, okay. Just picturing that, yeah.
Seriously, take a second. How does that actually feel in your stomach right now, just imagining that?
It's deeply uncomfortable. Humbling.
And what's so powerful, reading the source, is realizing this isn't just some, hypothetical brain teaser.
It actually happened.
It actually happened to the author.
Yeah.
And it taught them something profound, something all their theological training, all their Bible knowledge had somehow missed.
Which was?
That the person on the other side of our argument, the one we're so sure is wrong, they might be the very one God uses to show us his grace when we need it most.
That is truly an uncomfortable mirror. Wow.
Yeah.
So before we dive into the biblical reasons for humility that the source outlines, it actually poses some tough questions for self-examination.
Right, like little diagnostic checks.
Exactly. The first one's called the memory test. Think back to the last time you changed your mind about something significant. Could be theology, could be anything you held strongly.
Okay, I can think of a few times.
How did it feel when someone was genuinely patient with you while you were figuring it out versus, when someone was condescending or dismissive?
Oh, huge difference.
Yeah.
Patience makes you feel safe to explore. Condescension just shuts you down.
Precisely. So now, reflecting on that, how do you typically approach others who are still where you used to be on that issue?
Oof, that's right. That's a tough one to sit with, honestly. I remember early in my faith wrestling with a concept, and someone I respected just listened patiently, then offered a perspective without making me feel dumb.
And that made all the difference.
It really did. It opened the door instead of slamming it.
Okay, then the source hits us with the role reversal. What if that Christian you're about to, correct with such vigor, what if they turn out to be the one God sends to help your kids through a crisis someday? When that moment comes, and it might, what do you want them remembering about you? Your harshness or your grace?
Wow. That really brings it home, doesn't it? Thinking about the long-term relationship, the potential future need.
It does. And finally, there's the dinner table question.
Okay.
If Jesus were physically sitting there at your next theological debate or discussion, would you speak the same way? Use the same tone? Make the same faces?
Probably not. I think we'd all suddenly find a lot more gentleness.
Right. The source reminds us Jesus ate with tax collectors and sinners, people society condemned, yet somehow they didn't leave feeling condemned by him.
Which is remarkable. That alone should make us pause before our next, truth crusade.
Definitely.
So, building on these reflections, what really struck me was how the source material digs into 4 core biblical reasons for us to maybe cool our jets a bit, especially with fellow believers.
Yeah, these are foundational. The first reason is, well, it's profoundly humbling. It's basically this: our greatest confidence often comes from our deepest ignorance
Ignorance of what?
of the facts we don't know about the person across from us. The source says, no matter how much we study, there are always facts lurking beneath the surface that we simply don't know.
Okay, like what kind of facts?
Well, it gives these incredibly potent examples, like the pastor you're correcting. Maybe they just buried their
Oh my
child.
gosh.
The woman challenging your view. Maybe she's working 2 jobs while caring for a spouse with dementia.
You'd have no idea from the outside.
Exactly. Or the young man who seems so stubborn. Maybe he was spiritually abused by someone who held your exact position.
Wow. Okay, when you put it like that, it just changes everything. It leads to that haunting question the source asks.
Which is,
What if the very thing that makes them seem wrong to us,
Yeah.
in our eyes, is actually what makes them precious to God right now in their struggle?
because we just don't have the full picture, ever.
Never.
And that ties right into Ephesians 4.15, doesn't it? Speak the truth in love. The source points out, love has to start with acknowledging our limited perspective.
Yeah.
Think about parents. Good parents speak more gently when they know their child is tired or hungry or stressed out.
Right. You make allowances.
Shouldn't our fellow Christians deserve at least that same consideration?
That makes perfect sense. And it connects directly to the second reason for humility the source brings up. We learn as we go and grow, just like everyone else does.
Absolutely.
I mean, I think back to discovering certain theological truths that seem so obvious now. And I remember the excitement, but also maybe being a bit overzealous.
They've all been there.
Yeah. And I remember how some people were patient and others, well, not so much. So it makes me ask, am I treating other Christians' learning journeys with the same grace I wanted and frankly needed for my own?
That's such a key self-reflection. And it's right there in Mark 12:3-1, love your neighbor as yourself. That as yourself part implies remembering your own journey, your own need for patience.
So it's not just about being nice.
No. It's about extending patience for their spiritual growth, just like you need it for yours. The source puts it bluntly. That Christian who's still figuring out what you think you mastered years ago, they're not your theological project to fix.
They're my neighbor to love.
You're your neighbor to love. And here's the kicker, the really uncomfortable part.
Oh,
The Christian you're correcting. They might actually be ahead of you in areas you haven't even recognized as important yet.
what do you mean?
Well, the source uses this analogy. Some people are like advanced calculus students who can't balance a checkbook.
Huh. Okay, I see where you're going.
We might be able to rattle off systematic theology, but maybe we're terrible at forgiving a family member or showing practical kindness. Who's really more mature in that case?
That's a really tough but fair comparison. It's easy to judge based on our own strengths, which leads us nicely into the third reason, which the source calls the 8-step program from 2 Peter.
Ah, yes, Peter's fascinating list in 2 Peter 1, verses 5-7. He says, basically, add to your faith virtue, then to virtue knowledge.
Okay, so knowledge is there.
It is, but notice where it's third, and look what comes after knowledge.
Right. Temperance, which is self-control.
Hmm.
Patience. Godliness.
And only then, after all that, comes brotherly kindness, and finally, charity or love.
So, wait a minute. The sequence seems incredibly important. Knowledge isn't the end goal.
Exactly. The source argues it's more like a pit stop. What good is our knowledge if we haven't developed the self-control, the patience, the godliness that Peter says should follow it?
So you could, like, ace the knowledge test?
And still completely flunk Christian maturity if you skip the next steps. It's sobering.
It really is.
The source makes a compelling case. Maybe the Christian who seems doctrinally simpler but treats people with incredible gentleness and kindness. According to Peter's ladder, they might be miles ahead of the theological expert who lacks patience and kindness.
Okay, that's the mirror question then, isn't it?
Yeah.
If someone judged your spiritual maturity only by how you handled disagreements, where would you land on Peter's ladder?
That's a question to really ponder.
Yeah, definitely a constant challenge for me. And that brings us to the fourth reason to maybe rethink our approach, which the source calls the reviling trap, from 1 Corinthians 6.
Right. Paul lists revilers. The Greek is loidoros, people who use abusive, insulting language right alongside drunkards, thieves, the greedy, as people who won't inherit God's kingdom. The source calls this terrifying language, and rightly so.
And it's critical to understand what reviling means here. It's not just like swearing or shouting, right?
No, not necessarily. It's speaking in ways that demean, dismiss, or attack the person instead of engaging respectfully with their ideas.
That subtle put down, the sarcastic tone, the eye roll.
All of it can potentially fall into that category. So the deep self-check becomes how many of our passionate defenses of truth online or in person might actually cross that line into reviling.
Hmm. Because Paul also says in 2 Timothy that the Lord's servant must not be quarrelsome, but kind, able to teach, patient.
Exactly. And Peter chimes in 1 Peter 3.15, defend your hope, yes, but do it with gentleness and respect.
Always those two words, gentleness and respect.
So the gut check question the source leaves us with here is, when people disagree with us, are they experiencing gentleness and respect? Or are they experiencing something closer to reviling?
That's a heavy responsibility. Now, hearing all this, someone might think, okay, so do I just throw out all my convictions, pretend nothing is certain?
Right. That's a natural concern. But the source material is very clear. Absolutely not. Some things are certain. Foundational truths.
Like Jesus being the Son of God, Scripture being reliable, those kinds of core doctrines.
Exactly. Those are non-negotiables. But here's the profound wisdom it highlights. Even when we're 100% certain about a core truth, we can still communicate it with 100% humility.
How so?
Look at Jesus. He was absolutely certain about truth, right? No question. Yet Matthew 11.29 says, he was gentle and lowly in heart.
So his certainty didn't translate into arrogance or harshness.
Not at all. His certainty fueled his compassion, his patience.
Okay, so practically speaking then, what if we tried to match our gentleness to our certainty instead of our forcefulness to our certainty?
That's a great way to put it. And the source suggests we recognize that many theological issues exist on a spectrum of probability.
Yeah, some things are highly likely, some are possible, some are, pretty unlikely interpretations.
Right. And wisdom means not arguing about a possible with the same intensity and, frankly, the same tone we might use for an absolute certainty.
Treating interpretations with the nuance they deserve.
Exactly. And the real aspiration here, the source suggests, is becoming the kind of Christian people feel safe coming to when they're wrestling.
Like a good parent or mentor figure.
Precisely. Someone known for having strong beliefs, yes, but also known for leading with relationship, not just correction. Someone who creates space for questions, for doubts, for growth, without fear of judgment.
That really makes you think about your legacy, doesn't it? Are you the person people seek out when they're struggling, or the one they kind of avoid?
Paul talks about this in Titus 2, telling Titus to model sound speech that cannot be condemned. The Greek word is akatakriton.
Meaning?
Speech that's so healthy, so respectful, that even your opponents can't legitimately criticize how you're saying it, even if they disagree with what you're saying.
So the Titus test is, even if they disagree, do they have to admit you handled it in a Christ-like way?
That's the goal. A high bar? Absolutely.
But a Christ-like one. Okay, so let's broaden this out. How does this principle of humility apply beyond disagreements within the church? What about interacting with, say, people in cults or other religions or atheists?
It applies just as much, maybe even more so. The source poses this really challenging question. If we can't even trust the Holy Spirit and the power of the gospel to do the convicting work with our own brothers and sisters in Christ, why on earth do we think our clever arguments, or as the source calls them, shortcut shenanigans, are going to work better with non-believers?
Ouch, shortcut shenanigans. I like that. It implies we're trying to force something that maybe isn't ours to force.
Right. And sometimes, the source reminds us, God's calling for us is simply to plant a seed.
Not see the whole harvest.
Not win the debate. Not get the satisfaction of seeing someone's worldview instantly change. Just plant one seed faithfully and then trust God with the growth.
That requires letting go of the ego, doesn't it? The need to be the one who wins the argument. The real question becomes, am I more concerned with being right or with being faithful to whatever small role God gave me in this person's story?
Exactly. I've seen it so many times. Christians using every debate trick, every logical takedown against, say, a Jehovah's Witness or an atheist.
And what happens?
They might win the argument on points, but they often just reinforce the stereotype that Christians are argumentative, maybe arrogant, certainly unloving. The person walks away more entrenched than ever.
Whereas
I've also seen Christians simply live out Christ's love with its genuine humility and kindness that it creates a deep question, a hunger in the other person's heart, a hunger that only the gospel can ultimately satisfy.
So it's a tactical question, too. Which approach actually honors the power of the gospel? Trying to strong-arm people into the kingdom with our arguments.
Or letting the light and love of Christ shining through us create that desire. When we resort to those shortcut shenanigans, the clever gotcha questions, the aggressive tactics, the manipulation, the source argues we're basically saying, I don't trust the gospel to be powerful enough on its own.
Even though Romans 1:1 says it is the power of God for salvation.
Precisely. We act like it needs our rhetorical steroids to work.
Okay, here's the analogy from the source that really punched me in the gut. It's provocative but effective.
Let's hear it.
How would you as a Christian feel if someone from another religion tried to convert you while wearing a T-shirt depicting, say, Ronald McDonald hanging on a cross?
Oh, wow. That's incredibly offensive. Visceral reaction.
Right, that immediate visceral sense of, that's wrong, that's disrespectful. That's exactly how Muslims feel, the source explains, when Christians use disrespectful cartoons of Muhammad, or how any devout person feels when we mock things they hold sacred.
So the point isn't that we agree with them, but that we recognize their deeply set beliefs deserve a basic level of respect, even in disagreement.
Exactly. We disagree like adults who remember the person opposite us is still made in God's image. We respect their dignity, even if we fundamentally disagree with their doctrine.
We have to earn the right to be heard, the source says, by first showing we're safe people to disagree with.
It really comes back to the golden rule, doesn't it? We want people to be sensitive to our feelings when they challenge our beliefs. Are we offering them that same courtesy?
Mm-hmm.
This ties into another great principle the source mentions, the atavist principle.
Which is?
Just because you can do something doesn't mean you should.
Ah, okay. Explain that in this context.
Well, you can probably demolish someone's argument. You can expose every flaw. You can quote chapter and verse until they feel overwhelmed. You can use your knowledge to make them feel small.
But should you?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Does doing that actually serve the gospel? Does it reflect Christ's character? Does it create fertile ground for truth? Or just scorched earth and resentment?
So sometimes, the source concludes, the most powerful, wisest thing we can do is actually restrain ourselves.
Not from lack of conviction.
But out of wisdom and love.
That wisdom then leads to a really practical commitment, the source suggests. It calls it the emergency brake principle.
Okay, I like the sound of that. What is it?
It's simple.
Yeah.
The moment any conversation, especially a theological one, starts feeling more like combat than constructive discipleship,
Hit the brakes.
hit the brakes immediately. Just pause and maybe say something like, hey, folks, or brothers and sisters, I think we need to step back a second. Remember, we're actually on the same team here.
And the source emphasizes that the spiritually mature person in the room is always the first one to de-escalate.
Even if they think they have the stronger argument.
Especially if they think they have the stronger argument. Why? 2 reasons. First, winning an argument while damaging or losing a relationship, that's always a net loss in God's economy.
Right. People overpoint.
Always. And second, circling right back to where we started,
That person you're arguing with.
might just be the one God intends to use to show you incredible grace when you least expect it and most need it.
That original homeless moment story, it really drives home that, wow, God has a sense of irony sometimes, doesn't he?
He certainly seems to.
The people we're tempted to dismiss or correct harshly, they could be the very instruments of his unexpected blessing in our lives later on. Knowing that possibility definitely makes me want to think twice before firing off a sharp retort.
But the source adds an even deeper layer. Even if that person never helps you, even if they never change their mind, even if they always disagree with you,
They're still our brother or sister in Christ.
or at the very least, still made in God's image, they still deserve to be treated with the fundamental dignity that Christ himself died to secure for every person.
That's the baseline. So as we wrap up this deep dive, it really boils down to this final, challenging question for all of us, myself included.
What's that?
If we're not safe people for our fellow Christians, or even non-Christians, to disagree with, are we truly representing the heart of the God who was so incredibly patient with us when we were lost, confused, or just plain wrong?
That's the core of it. Let's strive to be the adults in the room. The ones who create space for growth, who speak truth, yes, but always with gentleness, remembering that every single one of us, including ourselves, is still learning, still growing.
Because, after all, someday we might be the ones knocking on that door, desperately needing grace from someone whose theology we once corrected, maybe just a little too sharply.
Exactly. So to recap the heart of the matter from our sources today, 4 key truths. 1, we just don't know all the facts about others, and we never will in this life. Humility is essential.
2, we all learn as we go. Extend the patience you want for yourself.
3, remember Peter's list. Knowledge is important, but it needs temperance, patience, kindness, and love to actually equal maturity.
And 4, reviling harsh, demeaning language is serious. How we speak matters eternally. Gentleness is wisdom.
We also talked about that sliding scale of certainty, matching our approach to our confidence level, but always with humility, and extending these principles beyond the church, trusting the gospel's power over our own argumentative shortcuts.
Yeah.
Which leaves us really with a clear choice presented by the source material. Do we prioritize being right or being righteous? Quick correction or patient discipleship?
So some specific challenges to take away and really think about. First, the personal challenge. Will you actually commit to using that emergency brake? Starting today, will you be the one to de-escalate?
Second, the relational challenge. Will you start treating every fellow Christian, every person, as someone who might, just might, show you profound grace someday, and speak accordingly now?
Third, the missional challenge. Can you trust the gospel's power enough to let it work, instead of relying on your own ability to argue someone into submission?
And finally, the legacy challenge. What do you want people to remember about your contributions to theological discussions? Your wisdom and gentleness, or something else? Just remember this final thought from the source. Someday you might find yourself on the doorstep of someone whose theology you once corrected, perhaps a bit too harshly. When that day comes, and it might be sooner than you think, you'll be profoundly grateful for every single moment of grace you showed along the way.
Wow. The family of God is watching us, the world is watching, and
Mhm.
most importantly, our Father is watching. Let's try to make him proud of how his children treat one another. Because as Jesus said, by this everyone will know that you are my disciples, if you love one another. John 13:35. That's our ultimate aim,